Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, page 55, and today's topic is observation. Chapter 2, Method of Research. Observational methods are based on the idea that data are more valid if they are gathered by seeing how people behave rather than taking on trust that people do what they say they do. There are two main observational techniques: non participant and participant. Participant observation is when the researcher take part in the behavior being studied. It is based in part on what Weber termed Verstehen. It means to understand by experiencing, or as Mia described it, the researcher's ability to take the part of the other and see things from their point of view. Empathy. Participant observation can take two forms: overt and covert. So according to these two paragraphs, first of all, we need to understand how important the observation is. This is page 55. How important the observation is. What is observation? So we got two things together. First of all, we need to understand the participant observation and non-participant observation. In participant observation, the researcher itself, participate in the situation and can observe and particularly participate in the scenario or in the situation. So this is participant observation. We got two things in participant observation: the overt and covert. So before I get started with overt or covert difference, I need to understand there's a term which is used by Weber, and the term is Verstehen. Basically, this is the German word Verstehen, just to understand. So a participant observation is all about the understanding or the research of the scenario. So for instance, if I'm conducting a research, so I try to be the part of this research project and try to pose that I'm understanding what is happening around me. I would love to be the part of that research scenario, research project, through which I can understand what are the problems, what are the things which are involved by the observers or the respondents, you can say. So, first is overt participant observation, involve participating in the behavior of people who know they are being studied. The researcher joins the group openly and usually conduct the research with the permission and cooperation of the group are significant members of the group. So, what is overt participant observation? The definition is when those being studied are aware they are being researched, contrasted with the covert participant observation, which is when those being studied are unaware that they are the part of a research project. So basically, overt participant observation is all about the awareness of the people who are being studied or who are being researched. So we need to understand in participant observation, we got two things: covert and overt, right? So about a word, it's all about, you can say that, like open participation. So in overt participant observation, the researcher participate in the scenario, researcher take part, need to interact with the people or the respondent. At the same time, the respondent simply know they got the awareness that they are being studied. So these are kind of things which are important from both point of view, from researcher point of view and the people who are being researched. Both party know each other that they are conducting a research project. So what are the strengths of the overt participant observation? On a practical level, recording data is relatively easy because the group knows and understands the role of the researcher. The researcher can ask questions, take notes, and observe behavior openly. With groups that have hierarchical structures such as large businesses, and the researcher can gain access to all level, the the boardroom as well as the shop floor. It can be difficult to get access to some groups, so researcher may use sponsorship to find a way in. This involves gaining the trust and cooperation of an important group member. Venkatesh study of a black American gang, for example, was only possible because a gang leader called JT sponsored and protected Venkatesh while he observed the gang and eventually gained access to some of its more powerful members. Sponsorship make it easier to separate the role of participant and observer. It reduces the chances of researcher becoming so involved in a group that they stop observing and simply become participant, known as going native. Even so, Venkatesh found there were times when his involvement was so complete that he acted like one of them and effectively ceased to be an objective and fair observer. So, if we talk about the strength of the overt participant observation, I mean, it's a real experience. I mean, obviously, you are a part of this project. You simply observe the scenarios. You can simply observe all the events, all the happening in front of your eyes, and obviously, people try to. I mean, to say, try to cooperate with you as much as possible. But what is the most complex or difficult thing in covert participant observation? It's all about your access. I mean, if a person or a researcher can gain access to a certain group, because there are certain groups, there are certain companies, there are certain targeted group, I mean, which are open to invite. You can go wherever you like to, but obviously there are certain groups which are we don't like, I mean, to be open up, and disclose what they are doing. So according to Venkatesh, a person who researched with a black American gang, and there are two things which are considered to be the requirements. First of all, the sponsorship. I mean, you need a lot of money for that, or you need sponsorship in this perspective that through a member of the group, you can move around, you can roam around, and you can get whatever you like to. But there's still, I mean, obviously there are certain things which should be or which must be taken as a private, and you are not allowed to be there. So there are certain things which are hidden, which are not open to discuss, not open to disclose. But most of the things, through sponsorship, sponsorship and cooperation, I mean, you can simply pierce through the group. At the same time, just to win the confidence, just to win the trust of the group, you need to adapt yourself according to the situation. So there must be a strong, you can say, involvement within the group. And even it is possible that you need to understand the jargon, the slang terminology. You need to act sometimes like the group, so people are more confident, they are more friendly to disclose what is your requirement and what you are looking forward to. The ability to ask questions, observe individual behaviors, and experience the day-to-day life of respondents help researchers to build up a highly detailed picture of the lives they are describing. This means that the researcher not only get to understand what people say they do, but also witnesses and experiences what people actually do, which may be different. This increase the validity of the data. So through covert participant observation, I mean, you not only know information a lot about the people, but at the same time you simply observe how practical, how pragmatic the information is all about. For instance, you have come to know about the certain details about the certain information of a specific group. So unless until you join the group, you pierce through the group, you have a sponsorship, you have a cooperation within the group. So I mean, it is easy to understand or check the validity, how the valid the things are. Why not? Why? Because you have a lot of knowledge about certain group. So it's all about the information. On the next stage, if you want to know the validity of the information, you practically observe the whole things by your eyes. You experience the scenario, the ambience. So it will be far more easier to evaluate, to examine whatever they used to do, either they work accordingly or not. So this is one of the strength. You got the practical things, you get the valid thing. You can simply contrast, you can simply compare the things which are the part of information, at the same time how practical the things are. So it's easy to distinguish what they are saying to what they actually do. So what about the limitations? If a group refuses the researcher permission to observe it, then the research cannot be carried out. In addition, overt observation requires substantial amount of time, effort, and money. Venkatesh, for example, spent around 8 years on his study of a single gang in a small area of US city. Theoretical criticism focused on the observer, Hathorne effect, and the extent to which the knowledge of being watched changes how people behave, while people may be studied in their natural environment. So obviously there are certain limitations. You need to understand what are the limitations. See, the very first thing is the Hathorne effect. You know, in my previous lecture, I told you what is Hathorne effect. Hathorne effect is the change. of behavior, of behavior of observer. For instance, you come to know that you are being studied, you are being watched. So obviously there must be something positive or negative. I mean, you can reflect when you come to know you are observed, you are being observed. Obviously there must be a change. One thing. Second thing, I mean, it will take a lot of time. It's a very time consuming information. You know why? Because according to the article, we come to know that Venkatar spent 8 years in one project. 8 years in one project. And for instance, I mean, who was the key member? Are the members of that group? They refuse to cooperate further. I mean, we can say that we simply waste the data. So you need to understand one thing. See, it's a large time consumption. You spend a lot of time in single one group. Details are there, that's very nice. A lot of time, one thing. Second thing is that your tool through which you simply entered appears through the group. It is important. So if he or she refused to give you the permission to enter and come to know what is actually all about, so once you get stopped by the member, so all your hard work, there is a sort of risk to be wasted. Understand? So very time consuming. It simply depends on the access. And once you are not permitted to continue your study, obviously your all your research is at risk. Secondly, third thing is the Hathorn effect. Obviously when you people keep on doing something and you are being observed, or you are being watched, so you're obviously you do something which is a bit natural. It's not, you can say possibly it's not natural at all. A further limitation is the researcher's level of involvement. Without full participation, researcher involvement may be too superficial to allow a true understanding of the behavior. So one of the researcher is, if you need to give full participation. If you're not able to give full participation, so all your role of the researcher will be superfluous. It's artificial. So if it is artificial, you can say, one can say that, I mean, there must be something which is missing in the research. You need to be practically involved. But otherwise, unless you're not practically involved, I mean, 100% in the research work, the knowledge you will get, it will be superficial. Superficial, it's artificial. That there are certain things which should not be the part of your research. Secondly, ethical concerns, such as not participating in illegal behavior, may affect the extent to which the researcher is truly experiencing how people normally behave. So I mean, yes, it's okay. I mean, you with your permission, with the permission of the people, you are doing all this. But there are certain things which are unethical. Unethical in this context, I mean, you obviously there are certain things which you get permission from other people, or the boss, or the member of the group. So there are certain things which should not be exposed, but still by the taking the benefit of the specific member through which you simply pierce through the group, I mean, it is unethical. uh, uh, it should not be like that. So there is a risk that the researcher will become too involved and effectively become the story they are reporting. This presence becomes the focal point around which people adapt their behavior. Venkatesh was given special treatment. He was invited to meeting and was introduced to people he would not have met if he had not been known as a researcher sponsored by a gang leader. Okay, so a word participant observation is impossible to replicate. Other must trust that the researchers saw and experience the behavior they document. In addition, it can be difficult for a researcher to accurately record behavior while they are in the middle of it. So there are a couple of things which are again the limitations. Obviously, you can't control the flow of the information. One thing. Second thing is that if the researcher is the part of the group, so it is impossible for the researcher to replicate or copy or write down the notes what is actually happening, what is the terminologies which are involved. The partial or even the chunk of things can be recorded, but not the whole detail. Not recording possible. One thing. Second thing is that you can't replicate the result. You know why you can't replicate the result? Obviously, if we're talking about the gang, there are certain limitations of the language. You can understand the language of a gang, for instance, working in Russia, entirely different stuff, entirely different symbols, entirely different communication style. So if you do the same stuff, it is not possible to replicate this thing while you are recording in Russia to Italian mafia. So it is not possible to replicate. So if it is not possible to replicate, so one can say that the canvas or the framework is very limited. So you people can't get the benefit through this kind of research, right? So in now it's the second thing we have is the covert participant. In covert participant observation, the researchers secretly secretly, covertly join the group so the subject are unaware that they are being studied. The main aim is to experience behavior in its natural setting, to watch people behave as they normally behave. Unlike overt participation, the researcher must balance the role of researcher and participant without revealing their true role together to other group members. So, what is covert? As it is mentioned by the term covert, it's all about the covering. So, what is covering? In covert participant observation, the researcher simply covers, hide its you can say its role, or its I mean, sometimes it's really difficult to explain what I mean to say. I mean, you're not supposed to tell who you are. Actually, what I mean to say is that. So, in this context, in covert, you simply cover up your identity. I mean, it is not possible to tell you what actually you are. This is the covert participant observation, right? Mosquitoes all around. The strength. Covert observation may be the only way to study people who would not normally allow themselves to be researched. Such people may include criminal, deviant groups, closed groups, secretly study the behavior of the religious sects because this was the only way to gain access. Defensive groups. So there are three kind of group, one can say that it's difficult to pierce through in covert participant observation. Obviously criminal don't let you do this. I mean, openly you can simply the part of the gangsters or the criminal to simply study what they actually like to do or what are the mechanism they are observing are conducting. First, criminal. Secondly, it's all about the defensive agencies. You are not, they never let you do whatever you like to. Obviously there are certain things which are involved in it. Secondly, third thing is that the religious sects. Obviously there are some extremist groups in every single religion, so they hardly let people know what is the functionality, what are the mechanism they are experiencing. So criminals, religious sects, and the defensive agencies, they never let people do to conduct research within the group. So for that perspective, you need to change your identity, you need to hide your identity and just try to pose that you are among them. For this you need to spend a lot of time with the group, you need to change your get up, you need to act, perform, speak like the group you are observing, you are experiencing. Covert participation avoid the observer effect, the subject behavior in largely unaffected by the researcher's presence. Through personal experience, the researcher gained valuable understanding, insight of the meaning, motivation, and relationship within a group. This can explain why people behave in a certain ways. The ability to experience things from the point of view of those involved, coupled with the sociological insight a researcher bring to the role of the observer, mean that they can make sense of behavior even in situations where groups member may not fully understand the reason for that behavior. So obviously in covert one can say that even you are able to pierce through group. So it simply depends. I mean, for instance, if I talk about the defensive agencies, I talk about the criminal, are the deviant groups which are not ready to cope with the law enforcement agencies. So definitely there are certain things which were even you can say difficult to pierce through. I mean, for instance, if you're working in a criminal group, so it is even possible while being the part of this group, you simply try to change your identity, you simply have the same get up, you use the same terminology, which is the part of their mechanism, even though there are certain things which is not possible to be observed, I mean, through covert participation. So, what are the limitations? Government studies of a US mental institution identified three major problems for the covert participant observer. First of all, entry to some group is by invitation only. Unless researchers are invited, they cannot join. I mean, obviously there are certain group, unless until you get an information invitation, then you are able to be the part of this research, and you can simply conduct your research. Otherwise, you are not allowed to be the part of this game. Some groups have entry requirement to covert study accountant or doctor. So first thing, it's all about your invitation. Once you got the invitation, then you are able to be the part of them. Secondly, there are certain requirements, entry requirements, unless until you have something I mean to pierce through. Otherwise you are not able to conduct your survey, I mean, openly. Thirdly, the characteristics of the observer must match those of the observed. obviously you need to change your get up, as I mentioned earlier, your language, your style. I mean, if you tend to be like them, then you are able to pierce through the group. Otherwise, unless until you are not able to be the part of this group, and uh, you're at a risk to be disclosed, and you pay the price for that. Staying in once inside, the researchers may not have access to all areas. Even it is possible you are the group, you are the part of the group, but still you are not able, you are able to pierce through the group. You know why? Because I mean, they are, while you people are working in this kind of groups, there are certain things to be challenged. For instance, see that if I'm working in a criminal group, I just want to get some information about the mechanism of the group. I mean, even it is possible that I will get access. So all my access, even the access will be of a limited range. Even it is possible that, for instance, I'm working with the criminal group, so I can obviously people simply consider me a new member. Though my language is quite close, even I can say that I'm the part of the past criminal past group. I was in that country. Now I changed the country, and I'm the part of this group in this country. Even it is possible. Even then, not possible for the person or the new person to be given the access of the whole group. Even the top leadership might be, it is possible he won't be introduced to the top leadership. So even it is possible. So while even you people are simply hiding, are covering your identity, so it is not possible to gain the all information within the group, even it is a criminal group or the defensive agencies, right? The researcher has to qualify, learn and culture and the dynamics of the group if they are to participate fully. This can require a range of skills, including the ability to mix easily with the strangers, create and maintain a believable and convincing backstory past, and to think quickly on their feet when questions are challenged. This thing I already mentioned, very quick, very smart, you know, your get up, your style, your conversation, all the things, and should present a pictures which simply give an idea to the member of the group that you are among them, right? In addition to the problem of the entrant acceptance and the departure, further limitations include researcher cannot be replicated. Obviously, I mean, it is possible you are, if you're observing a criminal group or a religious group or a defensive agency, it is possible that the data you will find through them is not possible to be replicated. One thing. Second thing, even it is possible once you are the part of this group. So I mean, most of the time we used to listen this sentence. I mean, there are so many doors which through which you can simply enter in the mafia. But once you are the part of the mafia, it is not possible to be back or to return to your normal life. Otherwise, you will be flatline. So recording data is frequently difficult. The researcher cannot take notes, ask too many questions, or openly record conversation. So obviously, while you people are working with these kind of groups like criminal gangsters and all this, it is not possible. You can freely frequently ask questions. Obviously, you keep on asking different questions. You try to be more inquisitive about them. So it is not possible that they can simply judge you. Okay, why you people are asking so many questions? So there must be certain risk while asking so many questions. So our movement and action can be observed by other in many ways. Even it is possible that you people are working in some places, so there must be CCTV or the cameras. So you need to be very careful. You need to be very careful. If you are observed, you are caught by the camera. You are doing something strange, you're recording something, you're making notes. So I mean, it is not possible that you will be able to conduct your research completely. Non-participant observation, as it is mentioned by its term as well, non-participant observation involve observing behavior from a distance so that the research subjects do not know they are being observed. The ethical issues of consent may not be a problem here. A researcher observing behavior in a shopping mall or the crowd at a supporting event could not be expected to get permission from anyone. Non-participant observation usually means that researcher does not become personally involved in the behavior they are studying. The kind of research, unlike participant observation, can be used to produce quantitative data, such as the number of times people are observed carrying out a particular act. So there must be certain things which are the strength. Access is one practical advantage of the non-participant observation. It allows research on people who may not want to be studied because they observe the behavior is illegal, secret, or personally embarrassing. For example, when the researcher does not participate in the behavior being observed, respondent can be objectively studied in a natural setting. So obviously, this is one of the strengths that whatever you get a result, it is quite natural. See that, I mean, it's possible. I mean, if you're researching, you are observing somebody by the distance. So obviously, the person who is being observed, he is far away from Hawthorne effect. So once he is away from Hawthorne effect, so whatever you get through the research or the observation is purely natural, and this is what actually they required. The limitation: observational studies cannot be easily or exactly replicated because the characteristics and the structure of the group may change over the time. Observing people from a distance may also produce data that fails to capture the depth, richness, and personal uh, intimate details of their behavior. This type of study also raises ethical questions because people are being observed without their permission. So, I mean, the limitations of non-participant observation is obviously you can simply observe different people. I mean, they are doing this. Obviously, yes, you are able to get the natural stuff, but at the same time, we don't know. For instance, I'm a shopping mall. I can see a couple. They are simply arguing with each other. So I don't know exactly either they have the same tendency all the time they are at the shopping mall, or it's the reaction of something. So the things you get through the non-participant observation, it cannot be replicated. One thing, it is of a very low importance because not replication, no replicate. One thing. Secondly, I mean, you don't know exactly what is the context in which the couple or the people are behaving. So either they, whatever they are behaving, it's permanent or due to certain reaction. So this is I have for today, because today I simply completed observation. In observation, I got two things: participant observation and non-participant observation. In participant observation, I got two things: covert and overt. And again, there are certain things. Overt means open. In open, I mean, you need to understand the whole group, and the group even know they are being studied. In covert, it's all about the covering. In covert, I mean, neither observer nor the nor the respondent, they don't know anything about each other, and they are not disclosed that they are being observed. So this is we have for today. Take great care of yourself and the people around you. Hope to see you tomorrow on same channel. Till then, fi aman Allah.